Okay, so we are going to be finishing up our unit 2.5. Got a little bit of stuff that we've got to contain here, so let me go ahead and get it to us. All right, so 2.5, okay, we've got, we're going to be talking about intercepts and circles, okay, and we're going to talk about a few other types of functions too, just to kind of show you a couple beginning things. All right, so let's talk about intercepts. Intercepts, there are two types of intercepts, x-intercepts and y-intercepts. We already talked about them, right? Okay, so if it crosses the x-axis, that is an x-intercept. If it crosses the y-axis, that is a y-intercept. Now, you can find multiple ones. We already talked about how to find them for linear. Let's talk about some other functions. So here I have a quadratic function. Quadratic functions are parabolas. So there's a chance that you might get up to 2 x-intercepts, but you'll only ever get 1 y-intercept. Rule for x-intercepts, sub 0 for y and solve. Okay, so if I want to find the x-intercept, we're going to put 0 in for y is equal to x squared minus 4. Okay, so now I'm going to solve this. We're going to bring this over. We're going to take a square root on both sides, and what we have to remember is we're going to get plus or minus 2, which means we're going to get 2 x-intercepts. We're going to have 2, 0, and negative 2, 0. Okay, and that's where these would come into play. Okay, now, y-intercept. Any kind of functions, we can only have one y-intercept. Okay, so how do I find y-intercepts? We are going to sub 0 for x. Actually, I messed that up for you a second ago. I said y, but let me write that. For the x-intercepts, we're going to sub for y, 0 for y, and solve. Here we're going to sub 0 for x and solve. So we're going to have y is equal to 0 squared minus 4, or y is equal to 4. So that means we're going to have a y-intercept at 0, 4. Okay? All right, so let's take the next one. The next one is absolute value. Okay? Any of these, you can put this in your graphing calculator and solve. Okay? You can put this in your graphing calculator and solve. Some of you do not have a graphing calculator. Notice this would help you to have a graphic calculator. Go borrow one, find one from somebody. That might help, okay? But algebraically, this is absolute value. An absolute value function is a v, which, if I put any type of function here, notice you can have up to 2 x-intercepts. All right, so follow our rule. 0 for y. So this would be 0 is equal to absolute value of x plus 1 minus 3. Move the 3 over. And then remember in 1.7, which is on this test, you can solve this by splitting it up. X plus 1 is equal to 3, or x plus 1 is equal to negative 3. And we're going to get two answers. We're going to get x here is at 2, and x here is at negative 4. So we're going to have a intercept at 2, 0, and negative 4, 0. All right, y-intercepts, we're going to put 0 in for x. So we're going to go y is equal to absolute value 0 plus 1 minus 3. That's going to be the absolute value of 1, which is 1 minus 3. So y is going to be negative 2, or we're going to have an intercept at 0, negative 2. Y-intercepts are the easy one. Okay? Y-intercepts, if it has one, it's always going to be found. Okay? Calculator actually found those. Okay? There are hints on how to use certain calculators in the e-text. Okay? All right, so let's look at the next one. This is what's known as cubic. So this one here, last one was absolute value. This one's cubic because of that 3. Cubic functions tend to look like this. Some variation, like a snake. Which usually, it depends on how many you can find. Okay, this is an interesting cubic function because it's going to look more like this. You can have more of a hump. All right, now let's follow our rules. We're going to put 0 in for y. Now this one takes a little bit more room because we're going to have to do some work. We're going to have to factor. So we're going to take out an x, which is going to give me x squared minus 1, which this is going to give me a value at 0, which is going to give me a 0, 0 x-intercept. This one, if I factor it farther, is x minus 1, x plus 1, which is going to give me 3 x-intercepts. Okay, remember this right here? Remember I said it has a little bit more of a hump? That's because it crosses. So you end up getting 3. Okay, so if I put a y-intercept, give you an idea, put 0, for y, we're going to go 0 cubed minus 0, which is y is 0, so I'm 0, 0. The way this picture actually looks, I'll give you a blow-up version of this. Here's -1, here's 1, here's 0, right? You've got a dot here, a dot here, and a dot here. And the way this graph looks, it does this. Oops. It looks like that. And that's why it has the 3. Kind of unique. All right, last one is the square root. The square root picture looks like this. Okay, it's upside down, or that version. Okay, so if you notice, there's no way to ever get 2 of these. Okay, you're going to usually get 1 of each. So when I put 0 in for y, square root of x, okay, to solve for x, we have to square both sides. So x is going to be 0. So we got a x-intercept at 0, 0. Okay, and then to get the y's, y is equal to the square root of 0, which is y is 0, which means a y-intercept at 0, 0, which is the same point, because what happens is you have the grid right there. It looks like that. Okay, you can put any of these in your calculator and graph it if you have a graphing calculator. There are some graphing calculators on the computer, but they would be harder to use in terms of other forms, okay, on tests and stuff. All right, so that's intercepts. The rest of this unit is about circles. You guys know what a circle is. All right, so we have a center, and we have a radius, and it's usually a little r. Okay, the radius is the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. You also have a diameter, which is 2r, right? Twice the length of the radius. So, all right, so standard form of a circle. You're going to learn two different equations. The standard form of a circle is x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared is equal to r squared. All right, now a couple things we learned for this. H and K are going to be my center. R is the radius. Okay, now notice the minus signs. So if there's a minus sign in the equation, that means your H or your K value is positive. If there's a plus sign, it's going to be negative. Okay, so if you look here, this says find the center and the radius. The center is H and K, so here's H and here's K. Okay, now because we're following here, the H value is going to be positive 3, the K value is going to be negative 2. And the way you know this is if you take this negative 2 and you plug it in up here, y minus a negative 2, wouldn't that give you y plus 2? And that's why I need it to be a negative 2. So the center is at 3, negative 2. There's my center. The radius comes from this, but this is r squared. So if that's r squared is equal to 36, then the radius has to be 6. Okay? Now, granted, it should be plus or minus 6. However, distance is always positive. So it's going to be a radius of 6. So how do I graph it? Okay? So you can plot a point at 3, negative 2. Okay? So at 3, negative 2, let's say this is the graph, 3, negative 2. So there's my center, 3, negative 2. And then the radius would count out 6 places. Okay? So if you count out 6 places here, 3. This would be out to 11, negative 2. Okay? All right. So if we look at this one, notice there's no h and there's no k, which means h is 0, k is 0. They're missing. So we have a center at 0, 0, and a radius is the square root of 100, which is 10. So how do I graph that? Well, you'd go on your graph, 0, 0, and you're going to stretch it out all the way out here to 10, all the way out here to negative 10, all the way down here to negative 10, and all the way up here to positive 10. And then you have your circle that connects it. Now, I believe you hit the circle and then you stretch the circle out until you get to your 10s. Okay? Now, what about this last one? Well, here's h, and then the k has to be somewhere here. So k is 0, and h is going to be negative 3. So I have a center at negative 3, 0. Now, how do I find the radius? Well, the radius, so if r squared is 24, take square root of both sides. That is not a perfect square. All right, so you have to simplify the 24, like we have. 4 and 6, 2 and 3, 2 and 2. So that's going to be 2 root 6. Now remember, no negatives allowed in radius. That's distance. So it's going to be 2 root 6. Now that's not one we would actually have you graph because you need a decimal for that. If you were graphing, we're going to give you whole numbers. All right. So can we go the other direction? Well, that's not too bad. Okay, I'm not going to worry about graphing this one. I think we're good with the graphing. So if this is h and this is k, plug it in. So plug into h, so that's going to give me x minus a negative 2, right? Which becomes x plus 2 all squared. The k is the 4, so it's going to be plus y minus 4 all squared. And then this number has to be squared, so we square this one. Makes it a 9. And there's my equation in standard form. Okay? So now we have this one. Radius is at 0, negative 5, or center is at 0, negative 5. Radius is at the square root of 6. Well, if this is h and this is k, well, there's no h, so that's going to be x squared plus y plus 5 all squared is equal to, and what we have to do is take the negative square root of 6 and square it, which is 6. And there's my general form, or standard form. All right, so the last part, and I know I have to do this, sometimes I don't get a chance to do much of this, but I do know there's something on the final that goes with this, so you kind of want to know how to deal with this. General form of a circle. General form of a circle is x squared plus y squared plus cx plus dy plus e. Now notice there's no numbers out in front of the x squared, y squared. Technically you might have an a, but it'd have to be the same number for it to work. Okay, like here, this is a general form of a circle. How do I know it's a circle? The front numbers have to be the same, x squared and y squared, and it has to be a plus. Okay, so if there is a number here and here, it has to be the same number. And then you also have to have the plus sign in between the x squared and the y squared. Now, how do I put a standard form into general form? Well, you just multiply it out. It does have to equal 0. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply this out. X minus 3 times x minus 3. That's going to be x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay. Do this one. Multiply it out. Y minus 2 times y minus 2, which would be y squared minus 4y plus 4. Okay, and that's all going to equal 25. I got to get in this form. X and y is together, so x squared plus y squared, that's that and that. And then it's x next, so it'd be negative 6x minus 4y. And the constants, 9 plus 4 is 13, and this 25's got to come to the other side because it's equal to 0. So 13 minus 25 is negative 12. Minus 12 is equal to 0. And there's my general form of the circle. And I know it's a circle because the x squared plus y squared. Okay, as long as it has x squared plus y squared, it's going to be a circle. All right, so let's look at this one. Here I have general form, and I want to find the radius and the center. Well, I can't find the radius and the center from this. I can only find radius and the center from standard form. So I have to get this to be in standard form, and this one takes a little bit of work. Okay, now first of all, if there is a number in front of here, this is a circle, I need to get rid of those two 2's. So we're going to divide everything by 2, and hopefully this makes it easier. So we're going to have x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 2y, excuse me, minus 20. All right, so far so good. Now, what we're going to do next is get the x's together and get the y's together. Okay? But the key is we're going to complete the square twice. All right? This is the key. This is the reason why I teach complete the square before, because now you've seen on how to complete the square. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to put the x's together, x squared minus 4x. We're going to put the y's together, and this 20's got to go to the other side. So it becomes positive 20. All right, now remember complete the square, we always had that little blank. So we're going to put a blank with this one, and we're going to put a blank with this one, which means I'm going to put 2 blanks over here to keep it equal. So we're going to complete the square twice. And if you remember, complete the square is b over 2 all squared. So b is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Then the 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. Okay, now why do we do that? We do that because this piece can now be written as something all squared. This piece can be written as something all squared with a plus sign between. Well, wait a minute. I need 2 things that are binomial squares. Hey, so I'm going to get this. This is going to be x, remember, minus the square root of that is 2. This one's going to be y plus 1. Okay, now remember those blanks, that 4 and that 1. That 4 also has to be over here. This 1 also has to be over here, which makes this 25. Wait a minute, that's standard form. That's awesome, which means my center is going to be at 2, negative 1. And the radius, we know, is the square root of 25, which is 5. And I can actually graph it. We're going to go 2, negative 1. There's my center. We're going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 5. Left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there is your circle. And we have our circle made. Okay? So that is the routine. So you might want to look that over twice. Okay? Get your x's together, y's together. Put your blanks everywhere. Well, you complete the square in the first one, 4. Put it on the other side, 2. Complete the square of the second one. That's a 1. Put it on the other side so that I get 25. And then write your binomial square. And you're done. Okay? All right. So I hope that helps. We want to make sure you're doing well with this. We'll be getting ready for our review for our next unit test. Okay? Again, good luck, and hope the things that we've done will help you.